Or you don't like the way your nose looks, or you're not happy with your skin tone, and you don't want your children to inherit these bad qualities of yours? Not a problem. Fill in the online form, fill in the details about the qualities that you want your children to inherit or not inherit, and they'll make these babies for you. These are going to be called designer babies. And in this episode of IDIF, let's talk about these D babies. The current generation of gene coding is very dependent on the already existing harvested genes. But in the future, we'll be independent of this, because of which we'll have infinite number of combinations to play with. Are we already playing God on this? But there are two sides of this. There's a much more positive future that we can look to, but there's also not so positive future that can happen because of gene coding or mapping DNA as per what we want. Let's look at the positive side first. In the future, imagine there's an individual who's detected by a very fatal form of disease or has a non-curable form of disease, and the individual does not want these faulty genes to be passed on to their children who might have a chance to contract this disease. This individual can walk into the nearest medical center, identify the faulty DNA or a gene strand and get rid of it, replace it, and probably at an extra cost, add in features like height, skin tone, maybe even intelligence. Imagine that happening in the future. Also, the governments can have a mandate to include a certain strand of DNA which will make the children and the future generations immune to certain viruses, making them healthy babies of the future, eradicating diseases altogether. Maybe D babies of the future will just make medicine obsolete. Also imagine, for the sake of technology, we are able to design babies who have an IQ which is equivalent to that of Einstein or even more. These future Einstein D babies will help us reshape societies altogether, because they will help us achieve technological marvels which without them would have taken generations to reach to or achieve. Now these societies that Einstein D babies will help us form will have supremely evolved technology, no crimes, and because of the advancement and medicines that they will provide, they might just have immune system which will bring humans closer to immortality. This is one society I'm looking forward to see. Speaking of these super societies or super races, not giving any hints towards any dictatorships, but what if governments are able to assign roles to different people depending on their IQ? For instance, scientists will be permitted to have babies with certain IQs, and on the other hand, workers will be allocated a certain level of rights to have babies with certain IQs. That way, they'll be able to distribute workforce in their societies for the smooth running of these societies. Why does this sound like many sci-fi movies that we have already watched, and it's already inclining towards dictatorship? I don't know if it's positive or negative, but maybe it might just be for the betterment of society, but then I might just be wrong. We've discussed people of the future, we have spoken about scientists and even governments, but what will militaries of the future look like? That's my favorite subject, militaries. Militaries of the future will be able to recruit soldiers even before they are conceived. Yeah, you heard that right. Because militaries of the future will have soldiers on board who will act as surrogate parents to these babies, these military D babies, and they will be designed for enhanced muscular, IQ, and suppressed feelings. These guys will be very effective out on the battlefield. They'll not just be able to heal their wounds on the go, so they'll have faster healing, maybe like Wolverine, and they'll be able to grow entire limbs like Deadpool. Maybe these military soldiers of the future will be called lizard military men of the future. These were some of the positives that can be considered coming out of designer babies, but these can also be considered immoral, and there's also a negative side to it. In nature, there's a reason why all living things are designed to live, age, and die. This is so that any abnormality or diseases do not get carried forwarded to next generations, because if that does happen, that can lead to extinction of that entire species, because of which tampering with nature is considered immoral. Imagine we are able to create a D baby which is quite normal, but then mutates to form an abnormality, and because we have designed this D baby is almost immortal. This will only lead to further complications in nature. If you also consider, there are a lot of movies made like this. Like if you watch the movie I Am a Legend, that's one movie reference I'm thinking of. That's somewhere we can just push our future race towards. And what if these societies of the future are like major corporations, and our rights in these societies or corporations are only going to be limited by the role that we play or the title that we hold? Is this actually going to be legal? And what if this technology falls in the wrong hands and these crooks are able to create a better, stronger versions of themselves only to go against the whole system? Are we actually working towards a future which is like the Mad Max versions of movies right now that we watch? I will leave you guys to think about it, and also leave a comment if you have a very different view of the future ahead of us. This is Aurelius from Mashable India signing off.